Hey guys, Dan here with today's Dan Reviews It video. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do today. We have a few this week lined up video-wise. Tomorrow's going to be the season finale of The Connor, so we've got that. Wednesday is a new episode of The Masked Singer. Now that I can do Zoom videos and know how to record those, we will hopefully have another Dan Does Disney pretty soon with my buddy Tim. We're going to review The Three Caballeros, so that should be coming this week as well. But what to do for today? It was kind of open-ended, and to be honest, I've been a bit down today. Not been in the best mood. We had these protests come in to protest the quarantine and shut down just a few miles from my house at the Capitol building here in Harrisburg. So I just have not been in a great mood today. So I thought, you know what? There's a few movies on Disney Plus that I've been meaning to get to. They should be kind of feel good. I'm going to knock out these movies. So that's what I did. So today I'm going to bring you Stargirl is the most recent. That just went up a few weeks ago. So I wanted to tackle that anyway. But I heard really good things about Timmy Failure, Mistakes Were Made, which started in February on Disney Plus. And then I never actually got around to watching the Lady and the Tramp remake on Disney Plus that came out on launch day back in November of 2019. So I watched all three of them, and we're going to talk about them right here, right now. Let's start with, we'll go most recent to the oldest. So Stargirl is going to be first up here, and this is based on a book by Jerry Spinelli. And essentially, it takes place in high school, but starts out sort of with a background of the main character. Well, I guess one of the two main characters, Leo, played by, let's see here, they have his name? I don't know. Played by Graham Vershare. Leo Borlock is the character, but anyway, his dad passes away pretty early in his life, so he's being raised by a single mother, played, by the way, by Darby, is it Stanchfield? From good old Scandal. Always love seeing her. She's been in a few things since Scandal wrapped a couple years ago, but he had this porcupine tie that was sort of a thing with his father, and one day at school he gets bullied, porcupine tie gets clipped, and then every year on his birthday, mysteriously a brand new porcupine tie shows up on his doorstep. He doesn't know from who, doesn't know why, but there it is. So he enters high school. He's playing the trumpet in the marching band. Not necessarily a cool kid, but just kind of living his life. And this new girl who was previously homeschooled and now enters the school sort of turns everybody's head. Nobody knows quite what to make of her. But her name is Stargirl, and she's played by Grace VanderWaal, who I knew from America's Got Talent back, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago. I believe she won America's Got Talent, if I'm not mistaken, but this is back when I used to watch the show more often, but I know she made it pretty far if she didn't win. But she is 16 now. She was probably about 13 on AGT, so it was maybe 3 years ago or so. But he takes an instant shining to her, and they forge a friendship, and a relationship, actually. But in the meantime, she sort of ingrains herself and endears herself to the entire school, doing things like, stopping a football game in its tracks by singing "Be True to Your School" on her little ukulele, the old Beach Boys song, and then all of a sudden their loser football team starts winning games. And so she's just got this effect on people. So this is the basic storyline. Like I think I said, it came from a book of the same name by Jerry Spinelli. This is not related, by the way, to the upcoming CW series called Stargirl. I think that's going to premiere in the fall, and I believe that's part of the whole DC Universe show thing. So this has nothing to do with that, lest you wonder about it. But we also see, by the way, Giancarlo Esposito here as a friend, basically, of Leo's, and a mentor. He kind of goes and watches him work. And we know him, at least I do, from Breaking Bad the most, which is like this really kind of horrible character. So it's really nice to see him playing the opposite, this really nice mentor type role. I don't quite want to give away anything about the twist of the movie, I guess. So I'll leave Stargirl's presence sort of as the way it is, but she definitely sort of. In addition to her positivity, she wreaks a little bit of havoc along the way. For example, Leo kind of forgetting his friend group because of her, and there's some things that people in school are starting to think about her that is not so good. So she has a little bit of a storied life in this high school as well. There's also a sort of video show that Leo and his buddies do called Hot Seat, where they ask all these intense questions and try to get her on to find out a little bit more about where she came from and her background, and who the heck is she, and how is she so amazing, and she seems to kind of be the good luck charm to the school. um, so anyway, that's a lot of the plot points of this movie. So what did I think of it? Well, first of all, when I sort of clicked on the description of it and saw that Grace Vanderwaal was the star, I was like, okay, I love Disney, and sometimes they make some odd casting choices. I thought this girl was decent on America's Got Talent. She obviously can play a ukulele, and she sings very, very well. Um, but can she carry a movie? And what's funny is, I think she is actually the better performer in this movie than the actor playing Leo. I really didn't think he was that good at all. I thought he was kind of stiff. Graham Vercheer, or Vercheer, I thought he was a bit wooden, and she was very good in the emotional scenes, and she was also kind of funny. And then, of course, the songs where she was playing and singing, were dubbed over, in post production, but she's got a great singing voice, so they were sort of captivating parts of the scenes. But all in all, I mean, I think this is actually a pretty good high school movie. We get a lot of really bad high school movies, and Disney has brought us some of them. I think about like that movie Prom that came out a few years ago that was actually pretty bad. But I rewatched The Perks of Being a Wallflower over the weekend. One of my all-time favorite movies, one of my all-time favorite books too. But I rated it the number 2 movie of the decade for me. And I rewatched it again, and it holds up so great. Very, 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 very few movies have ever gotten the high school experience completely right, and that movie does. This movie does in some aspects. It certainly does a better job than other things. But it's a little bit of I don't want to say it's a mystery or supernatural movie, but there may be some of those elements at play. We never really quite delve in super far on that angle, but because of that, it maybe is not as authentic a high school movie as some have been. But the characters themselves are pretty believable in what they do. And I thought the movie was a bit compelling in that way. I mean, the relationships that they hold, and this whole notion of the hot seat, video show that they did, and the reactions of the people at the football game are a little bit, let's say, Disney-fied. I mean, I think a girl like this would probably be crucified out of the gate at a normal school, because she is, or a real life school, I should say, not a normal school, but she is off the beaten path. She is not what you'd call a typical girl. Nobody really knows what her story is, where she came from. That in high schools doesn't usually fly. So, this is maybe Disney sugarcoating things a little bit, as they tend to. But I was actually real surprised by her performance, specifically. I thought Vanderwaal did a very, very good job. And she does have a few pretty emotional scenes. Like I mentioned, she does them very well. That's sort of where the boy falters a little bit. I think he's okay when he's just sort of doing a typical like scene hanging with his friends, or even when he's with her, in the more romantic type scenes. But anything with a little bit of weight to it, the emotional scenes, he just doesn't really pull off very well. But overall, I think this is a fairly enjoyable movie. I think I might have a different reaction if it were released theatrically. It is something that I think works better on a smaller screen. Whether it's Disney Channel original or Disney Plus or whatever. In this particular case, Disney Plus. But I was surprised actually at how much I liked this movie based on sort of the description and knowing that Grace VanderWaal of America's Got Talent was the star of it. So I give Stargirl a B. I thought it was pretty enjoyable. Up next is going to be Timmy Failure, Mistakes Were Made. Now, I heard pretty good things about this going into it. The radio show that I podcast from Philadelphia, the Preston and Steve show, there's a guy on there who has sort of my sensibilities about these types of movies. This is a PG Disney family movie. But, he likes a lot of these kids, more kids specific shows. And so I'd been sort of interested in seeing it, not only because he was talking about it on the radio show, but they also had the star and the director in to talk, and the kid is really charismatic just in an interview setting. So I was like, all right, I'll definitely give this one a try. This movie is without a doubt the funniest movie I've seen so far in 2020. It was so funny. This kid is great. His name is let's see here, Winslow Fegley, and he hasn't really done much of anything, but he's hilarious. He's probably about 10 or 11 years old. The character Timmy Failure is in 5th grade, so I guess I should tell you a little bit about the movie before we go right into the the review of it. But essentially, he has a detective agency, and here's another one, by the way. Single mom, just like Stargirl. It's a Disney classic to not have two parents. Movies like Alexander and the Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day are sort of anomalies. Like if you look back in all the the Disney animated classics, it was mostly just one parent. Even Pixar movies, Andy only has a mom really in the Toy Story movies. A lot of the Disney movies have just one parent. So here again, just like Stargirl, our main character just has a single mother. And again, played by somebody that we know, I think, right? Ophelia Lovibond or something. But I've seen her in some things. She was in No Strings Attached, and she's done. She was on Elementary, the TV show, for a while. I've seen her in a couple of things. She plays the single mom. But this movie has a really good cast of some, I think underappreciated comedy people. Wallace Shawn is in it, who I know a lot of people love from The Princess Bride. That's not one of my favorite movies, but, of course he plays the dinosaur in Toy Story, and I've been really enjoying him lately in Young Sheldon. But Craig Robinson is in this movie, Kyle Borheimer. So there's a few, real good sort of under the radar actors and actresses in this movie. But anyway, the plot is that he has this detective agency, and it's called the Timmy Failure or something Detective Agency. That's his real last name, and he has it with his best friend, who is a polar bear, and he's imaginary, but to Timmy he is real, and I think to us in the audience he's pretty real too, and he ends up really getting in a lot of trouble at school because he is obsessed with his detective work and not so much with his schoolwork. Craig Robinson plays the school counselor, while Shawn plays his sort of main nemesis teacher, and it's that's the basic plot, but it is hilarious. This movie, first of all, the CGI of the polar bear is so much better than the CGI of the dogs in Call of the Wild, that it's sad kind of. But here's a movie where, unlike Stargirl, I think if this were a theatrically released movie, Disney could have totally made a lot of money with this. I think word of mouth would have gotten around. I think kids will want to see this movie, and I think families will want to see this movie. So my one nephew is 8, and I recommended it to his mom today. I was like, hey, for your next family movie night, you guys have Disney Plus. Watch this Timmy Failure movie. It's really good. Plot wise, it's something that we've seen sort of before with things like the Encyclopedia Brown book series and movies like Harriet the Spy and things like that. I mean, there's obviously a lot of movies where there's little kid detectives or little kid spies or whatever. But this kid, Fegley, has charisma to spare. He is hilarious. He can hit his punchlines. He reminds me a lot, actually, of Macaulay Culkin when I first saw him in Uncle Buck years and years ago. I think it would be really great if this kid had sort of a nice career trajectory for a few years, like Macaulay Culkin did. One interesting thing I thought about this movie is the director of it is Tom McCarthy, who you may know if you watch more mature films, because he is the Oscar-winning writer of Spotlight. He directed Spotlight, which obviously is about the Boston cover up with the Catholic Church and the molestation and stuff. Really heavy stuff. And I thought that was an excellent movie. And he has, sort of taken that and done a 180 with it. He does have a lot of experience, though, with writing and doing stories for Disney, because he helped with the story of Up. He has a writing credit in Nutcracker in the Four Realms, which was a pretty recent Disney film. So, he's obviously worked with Disney for a little while now, Disney and Pixar both. And I think he can really speak to, Up is such a good movie for all ages, because I think it speaks to a lot of different levels of, I think it talks one way to children, but in another way to adults, and another way still to maybe even senior citizens that see Up. Nutcracker I can't really speak to. That was not that great of a movie. It was okay. But here, these characters are all pretty real. The put upon single mother, the guidance counselor that doesn't really know what to do with this kid, but it's a kid that he really likes and wants to help. And then Timmy himself is just, such a smart kid, but he also, uses that smart for maybe more nefarious purposes, and he notoriously never apologizes. Instead of apologizing, he says mistakes were made. That's his way of admitting his failure. No pun intended, because his name's Timmy Failure. But the only things I can really say in the negative of this movie are, I honestly am not even sure you need the polar bear for it. I'm not sure how much it adds. I mean, there is sort of a side plot where he is fighting for the rights of bears at his school during this sort of project that they're doing with the librarian, who, by the way, I gotta look up who plays the librarian, because she's hilarious. Let's see if it tells me here. Caitlin Weyerhaeuser. I don't know her from anything, and she doesn't even have her own Wikipedia page, so she probably hasn't done a whole lot, but she was hilarious in this. Clearly a lesbian. Disney has always been about gay rights. She's all tatted up and has like a pride flag on her binder and stuff, so all right, we get it. She's in the LGBT community, but she's so funny, and her exchanges with Timmy are great. But yeah, other than sort of that little side story about the bear, I'm not even sure we needed the bear in this movie. I understand what the bear represents to Timmy and everything. I get that, but I think the movie could have done fine without him. Also, the whole mistakes were made. Point, I guess, sort of does get a little overused in the movie. It gets kind of old, and at some point you're like, all right, Timmy, like, now you're really pushing people, a little bit here. There's definitely some down parts in the movie that aren't as funny because of that. He starts to get a little bit on your nerves, but just as he is, things sort of turn around in that regard. Without giving anything else away, that's where I'll leave it. But I thought this movie was really well done. Easily, like I said, the funniest movie of the year. Timmy Failure, Mistakes Were Made, gets an A- from me. It's on Disney Plus now, so if you have that, check it out. I mean, all these movies are on Disney Plus, but that of the three is, for me, the most highly recommended. Which means Lady and the Tramp is not an A minus. It is a little bit lower on the list. This is the 2019 version, so it's been out for about 4 or 5 months. But if you have Disney Plus and you had it from the start, maybe you've seen this already. I had not until today. And truth be told, the original Lady and the Tramp isn't one of my like Disney animated go-tos. I mean, I've only seen it in full, I think, well, maybe twice. I saw it about 5 years ago when I was doing Film Fanatics, and we were going to do our top five, or we did do our top five old school Disney movies. I think the cutoff was like 1970 or something. And that was not on my list, I don't think. But I'd seen it back in like middle school too, for like a movie day at school. But it's never been one of my like go-tos, you know. And obviously the scene with the spaghetti is a classic. I've probably seen that scene a number of times, but the movie on the whole, just twice. And this is, you know, carrying in the same line as I would say like Cinderella and the Lion King, more of the direct, you know, live action remakes, less so things like Maleficent that take, you know, a little bit of a turn, or I mean, I don't know. Even Aladdin, I guess, took a little bit of a turn, or The Jungle Book. But this one took there were a few differences from the animated film and this. I would say some of the main ones were that it's a little bit more Disney-fied for the new generation. You know, there isn't as much animal abuse here, let's say. You know, I mean, in the original, they got away with a good bit more. Number one, they were animated, and number two, it was a slightly different time. You know, I think people are a little more sensitive now to things like that. So they veered away from a lot of that stuff. It's Aunt Sarah, right? Aunt Sarah's role was a little bit different in this as well. You know, she had a different relationship with the family. But I love it was Nicole Yvette Brown from Community who plays her. So you know, I love seeing her as always. And then we actually see the faces of the parents, which in the old one they did not do. So you know, that gives us a little bit you know, more of a family connection. I think, you know, the original movie was so much just about the dogs and stuff, and here it is obviously about the dogs, but we get more of a little bit of a family vibe, you know, with this one, because we sort of see the faces of the adults, and you know, we see it a little more from our perspective, I guess, as the viewer, as opposed to just the perspective of the dogs themselves. So all of that was a little bit different, but for the most part, this hews pretty close to the original story. The dogs in question in the whole movie, not just Lady and the Tramp, but it's a hybrid of real dogs and computer animated dogs. And I'll tell you what, again, you know, no, look, you know, Disney's got the money to do this stuff, you know, forever. But they, you know, the CGI dogs and stuff in this, definitely better than the CGI dogs in Call of the Wild, which Disney ended up releasing Call of the Wild anyway because they bought Fox, and so you know it's technically under their umbrella anyway. But Disney didn't make the movie, you know, Fox Studios did before before Disney bought them, 20th Century Fox, I guess. So, but so the CGI is definitely real good here. One thing I never really like is the whole dogs or any animals really moving their mouth in, you know, computer animated, moving their mouth to speak in a movie. I always kind of hate that. I find it a little bit jarring, and it's done okay here. You know, I can't say they do a bad job with the graphics, but it's just it's a premise that I don't typically get behind anyway. I think maybe the one exception is Babe, the pig, but other than that. But I liked some of the changes that they made. One change I didn't really care for it. Now, Janelle Monáe voices Peg here, and you know, the Siamese Cat song, of course, is you know, a bit dated, let's say, and in 2019 is not going to fly. But from what I read, Janelle Monáe was working on an updated version of it, so they could still do that song, but just have it, not be as offensive, and just sort of do it a little bit differently. And Janelle Monáe is insanely talented. She's a great actress. We've seen this in Hidden Figures and some other things. And then, of course, she's a great singer as well. So I would have been very interested to hear that, but they went a different route. They just had the Siamese Cats Siamese Cats sing a different song entirely. So that was kind of a bummer. The We Are Siamese song is honestly probably my favorite part of the whole original movie. I mean, I do like the spaghetti scene, and that is, of course, present here. You're not going to do Lady and the Tramp without the spaghetti. So how is this movie on the whole? I mean, I think this kind of falls into the category of didn't really need to be remade in the first place. I mean, I sort of have a love-hate relationship with the Disney remakes. I think some of them are amazing. Beauty and the Beast was, like, stellar. I love that movie. I saw it so many times. And I'm trying to think. Jungle Book was really great. But like The Lion King was not good. I think the closer these movies are to the real story and just taking everything, like Beauty and the Beast was very close to the original. I can't deny that, but it made a few changes along the way that I thought were really interesting. The backstory on Belle's mother, for example, and the song that they added to it really spoke to me, and it was a really emotional part in the movie, and it like made me cry when they sang it, and that wasn't in the original movie. So all right, cool. But here, I'm not positive I like all the changes that they made. Certainly the Siamese Cat song being excised is kind of a bummer. I would have loved to hear a reworked version, like they were working on. And other than that, the CGI is fine. Nothing about this is necessarily bad, I would say. If the original didn't exist, I would probably like this movie more. Kids that are unfamiliar with the original, I think, will enjoy it. I think parents will probably think to themselves, why did they remake this? The original still holds up. And it does. I mean, most of those original Disney movies, I got to admit, they still hold up. This movie was from the 50s. It's now 60 plus years old or something, and I think it still holds up, as of when I saw it a few years ago. So, why remake it? Well, because Disney remakes everything, and it's their thing right now. This definitely falls in line of like more of a ho hum. The CGI looked good though. I can't deny that, and I liked a lot of the actors in it. Tessa Thompson, for example. I already said some of the other ones. And what's his face from The Ranch. The old man, Sam Elliott, he plays Trusty. He voices Trusty here, so it's always good to see him as sort of the wise old dog, doing the voice there. So there were things I liked about it, but I think overall it sort of just doesn't really need to exist. Much like Stargirl, I think if this was released in theaters, I would like it even less. But on the small screen, I think it's okay. It's not bad, but it's a little too safe. It's a little too sanitized for a 2019 type audience, and everything I've already said. The Siamese Cat song not being there was kind of a bummer. But look, the spaghetti scene still works. It worked 65 years ago. It still works today. To give you the feels, and the characters still work. So overall, I'm going to leave Lady and the Tramp 2019 with a C+. I think it is fine for what it is, and if the original didn't exist, I think we'd have a different grade for it. But the original is still so completely watchable. And good. And again, it's not my favorite of the old classic Disney movies by any stretch. But I think it still works. It's magic. So here you've got a lot of the same emotional beats, but just in a safer box overall. So that's going to do it for the Disney Plus Originals review. definitely took my mind off of what's been going on today in my life. So I'm glad to at least bring that to you guys, and give me something to do for a little bit. As is, I guess, the whole point of me trying to do a video every single day of the quarantine, is to I don't know. I have something new to talk about, so every day is not exactly the same. But tomorrow is the season finale of The Connors, so we'll have that tomorrow night, and then Wednesday's The Masked Singer. So, I mean, my guesses are pretty solid for most of the singers already, but there's still one, maybe two question marks, and I think they both are going to be performing Wednesday, so that will be an interesting show. And then, like I said, if you're into the Disney stuff, the Three Caballeros, I'm going to be doing that review with Tim before too long. Hopefully, at some point this week. Maybe it'll be up over the weekend. So, comment below. Like always, I love hearing from you guys. Let me know what you think of any of these Disney Plus originals. And stay safe. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.